Welcome back to the channel. Before we can put this Ford 7.3 Godzilla in Project Bad Decision back there, we're going to have to make a number of upgrades on the engine just to be able to fit it in the car. Additionally, we're going to do a little performance upgrade with a cam in order to try and make this a little bit better setup once it is in the car. As I discussed in the parts unpack video for this, there's a bunch of different ways that you can get an oil pan that'll be compatible with a Fox body. The way I have chosen is to use the Holley system. So that includes a new oil pan, a new front cover, a new accessory drive, a new oil pump setup, G-rotor style front mount oil pump setup. I've also selected a Brian Tooley Racing truck Norris camshaft for the project. In order to get things ready, we're going to have to take this whole front and bottom off of the engine, upgrade the cam, put in a phase limiter on the cam phaser system, and then put a new pan, new oil pump, and new front cover, plus all new accessories on the engine. And we've got to do all of that before we can even try fitting it in the car. Now sometimes when these swaps are new, there's parts coming out in the marketplace that weren't there before. Only a couple weeks ago I did an unpack on all of this Holley stuff and all the other parts, including the engine management system that I bought for the project. And at the time, it seemed like the only way we were going to be able to mount this in the car was using a custom motor mount setup with weld-on tabs. In the intervening couple of weeks, AJE has released a tubular K-member setup that mounts the Godzilla. There's a version that's special to mount it with the Holley pan, and it supposedly will allow a power steering rack. That's different than the Team Z version that's been out there, which would force you to go manual steering. I've ordered all of those parts. Hopefully we've solved our engine mounting problem by doing that. I think then once we have the engine upfitted and ready, we'll pull the engine and transmission out of Project Bad Decision, put that aside, maybe find a buyer for it, and we'll pull out all the front suspension, put this AJE stuff in when it arrives. Then we can start doing a test fit to see how this engine's going to fit in there. Anyway, the topic for today's video is the upfit on here. So I'm going to try and take you through pulling the front cover, pulling the oil pan, changing the cam, and putting all the Holley stuff back on the car. I'm going to caution you that I have not done this before. It's always a little nerve-wracking to tear into a brand new engine like this, especially one that you've never worked on before. But I have read the Ford service manual. I have talked to guys who've done these upgrades, and I feel like I've collected all of the special tools that are required, and I'm ready to go ahead with it. So follow along as I kind of muddle through this upgrade, and we'll see how it goes. Wish me luck. I'm going to start by seeing if there's any fluids in this thing. So let's pull the oil plug. Oh, look at that. There's oil in there. Son of a gun. So there's some brand new, fresh, never run oil. While I'm waiting for these fluids to drain out, I'm going to go ahead and try and get these manifolds off because they're just in the way and they add extra weight. So take the spark plugs first. Let's cut that off. These are 15. My impact socket set has 14 and 16, but not 15. It's dangerous to use a chrome socket like this with an impact, even though I have this impact wrench turned way down. Wear safety glasses in case this explodes. Let's start in the middle here. These are probably not very tight, so they're probably not a real explosion hazard for the socket, especially with the impact wrench turned down. But for God's sakes, wear your safety glasses. Looks like these studs are turned into the head with a E-Torx. We're not going to use these manifolds because we got headers anyway. Let's put that down. Those are good heavy pieces too, eh? I don't need these either, but I think I'm going to leave them on in case where we go to put this on a pallet to stabilize it when I torque this balancer up, which takes an incredible amount of torque. It might be helpful to have those. All of this oil cooler pan setup is all got to go. So let's take that off. 8mm on this. Now I don't know if Holley provided a block off for this, but I talked to my parts guys, and they have one if Holley didn't provide one. So I'm going to save the little screw here, and I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to just put that little screw back in there. I have a little tray of plugs here. I've selected one out of here, which I think looks like it'll probably plug that hole up just to try and keep that clean. I'm not sure what we're going to do about keeping these exhaust ports clean, other than cover the whole thing with a sheet of plastic, which I guess we'll do. So this is as near to empty as it's going to get, I think. Let's put this plug back in. We want to take this plug here out of the block, because if there's coolant in there and it's too high in the block, which there was oil in there, if there's coolant in there, when we take the front cover off, it'll all spill out all over everything. We'd like to avoid that. This is a big metric plug, and it's like a steel O or B or something. There's an O-ring seal on it. Okay, it looks like the coolant was out of it. Now, there might still be some residual. However, if it's below this level, when we take the front cover off, we're not going to have any issues. All right, so we got the block dry, we got the headers off. I can't actually tell you what size that is. This is a special tool for balancers on a Terminator Cobra, but it's a big metric hex anyway. Okay, the next step is to disconnect all the wiring and sensors from the front of this engine. This should be the cam position sensor here. Pull the sensor plug, and this whole front cover is going, so I think we better pull that all out. Got that one. Christmas tree broke off in that one. Now this is probably not strictly necessary to disconnect, but it's probably good to get it out of the way. These have got these things that slide over the bolts. This is on the front cover. And are these different from each other? Let's hope. No. This is going to be the cam phaser solenoid control. And this is probably a coolant temperature sensor, I think. Probably. That's throttle. Maybe, since we don't truly have to disconnect this, are they keyed different at all? No. Wow. Those are keyed exactly the same, eh? I'm going to put that one back on. There's a little wiring harness connected up to this, I think, variable oil pressure plug. And there's a Christmas tree into the block there. Let's get rid of that. That pulled out. Then I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these coils. There's already no injectors on this engine, so they're disconnected already. We're going to disconnect these coils because we're going to have to take the whole valve cover right off. And those are the injectors. That's already disconnected. We've got to take the valve cover off. We better pull this as well. We got radio noise suppressors back here, which I assume those are actually going to come off when we take this valve cover off. Let's not get too wound up about those just yet. Disconnect the coils on this side. There's a couple of tricky bolts in the oil pan that are on top. These two here by the oil cooler, those have to come out for the pan. And then over here, this one here has to come out for the pan above where the filter adapter is. And you have to remember to take this retainer out and pull this little tube out, this orifice tube, or you'll snap this tube off when you pull it out. Ford says to pull this solenoid as well. None of this is going to get reused with the Holley setup, so it really doesn't matter, but I am going to pull all this stuff out. And if you look really carefully, you'll see there are a couple places that are clearly meant to be pried on the pan. So if you look up in here, you see there's a little slot there. That's a pry point. And you come up around here, you'll see there's a little slot there. That's a pry point. There's a few places like that along here which are meant for you to get a tool in and pry on in order to break the RTV seal. For the front cover, this is a pry point. There's one on each side. Now the manual, the Ford manual says you got to take this off and this off and this off and this off in order to get the front cover off. I don't think that's true, but there are a couple of bolts down in here that you have to get at to get the front cover off. So I am going to take this off. We might have to pull this off if we were going to reuse that pulley, but I don't think we do with the Holley setup. So there's nothing in behind this pulley that's related to the front cover. Should also note there's a studded bolt here. There's three of these. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. And then this bolt and this bolt are a different length than the other ones. So that's the pattern to put them back on. So I've got a little printout from the service manual here that shows the bolt pattern for the front cover. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around with a marker here, paint stick, and I'm going to mark all the bolts that are for the front cover. And that way we don't get confused with bolts that are for something else that don't have to be taken apart. So let's start at the top. That's one. So that trick makes it a little bit easier when I'm working on this, especially since I haven't done this particular engine before, to know which bolts we need to take out. Well, let's start trying to take this stuff off. That bolt's captured. It'll give us good access to those two. Those bolts are the same. That does come out. The book says to get all that accessory stuff out of the way, then move on to the balancer. Then you can take the pan and cover off. So I'm a little surprised that this bolt doesn't go into the engine, but I guess it doesn't. Yeah, that is not a front cover bolt. All right, next thing is this balancer. I'm going to use air, I think, to try and get the bolt out, and then we'll have to use a 3-jaw puller to pull it. The balancer bolt is 21 millimeter. It's torque to yield, can't be reused. I have this air impact set quite low, and I know the torque on this is ridiculous. Like ridiculous. Let's see if we can get it out this way. All right. Now, because it's torque to yield and I got a couple of replacement ones, let's mark this with some paint so we know that one's been used. The tool that I'm going to use here as the step tool, or to push against with the 3-jaw puller, is actually a crank bolt out of a 2-valve modular, and it's got a little recess put in the head. It's special for this. You need to have, whatever you do, you need to have something that you're going to slide in there to press against. Now, this is got a flanged head, as you can see. It's going to fit in there. It's not going to damage anything. And there are flat spots around the back of this crank for a 3-jaw puller. Now, everybody tells me use a 3-inch. I hate these things. They're always a pain to get started on here. We want these jaws to be tight around the back if we can have them. And we'd like that thing to be centered if it could be centered roughly. We think that's on. Use your safety glasses, because this is the kind of thing that can hurt if it comes out. Also, it's probably a good idea to try and be a little bit off to the side, if you can be, when you do this. And watch intently. Oh yeah, there you go. You can hear it starting to come. Now with it coming like that, these stupid glasses are fogging up. I want to take them off. The replacement balancer I weighed, and it weighed 19 pounds. So I think you better be ready for this to be heavy when it breaks off. Tightening up a little bit on me, like we've about reached the the end of the tool. Oh my God. We're almost off, but not quite. I reached the end of that tool. All right. Let's see if this 4-inch tool will work. There we go. 4-inch 3-jaw puller for the win, I guess. Well, the threads are pretty deep in there. Look where the threaded part of this is. This whole bolt's got threads, but that's how deep the threads are in that crank. Okay, let's see if we can get this. I'm going to take this retainer out. This stuff is for controlling variable oil pressure. There you go. Look at that little orifice tube. This looks like it's a T45, unless it's something really goofy, like some kind of Torx Plus. I don't know. There's getting to be so many of these goofy fasteners. Why Ford uses something like this, I don't really know, but they do. And I don't know if I actually have to take this solenoid out for the pan removal, but chances are it breaks or something if you leave it in. So Ford say to take it out. All right, I'm going to try to get this pan off. I could flip the engine over and take it off from on top, which would probably give me a lot more control. However, I'm a little bit worried about residual fluids in this engine spilling everywhere when I don't quite know where in the heck they're going. So I'm going to try and take it off like this. I put a moving blanket down so there's something soft in case it let go and fell. And then at the end of the day, who cares, because we're throwing this pan away anyway. There are 19 pan bolts that, according to the book, are all the same length. I don't know, start in the middle. It doesn't say take them out in a particular order. There's 4 in the back behind the flywheel. I'm just going to loosen all these for starters. There's this one on top here. There's 2 on top here. Okay, that's all of them backed off. Let's just start spinning them out with a... I think what I'll do is I'll leave the 3 special ones that are from the top in, and take those out last. Okay, I have them all out except for 2 of the top down fasteners. I'm pretty sure this pan isn't going to fall off. That should be all the bolts. I can't imagine that this is the kind of thing that gets something in your eyes. I don't really like these glasses because they fog up, but let's try. Let's put some safety glasses on. And I don't know, we should start at this little spot. Or start back here. I wonder if I took the front cover off, if that would make it easier to give you something to pry on. I think maybe we'll try the front cover then. The pan's pretty stubborn, so I decided to move on to the front cover. I pulled all the front cover bolts out. It was a big help to have them all marked like I marked them. Let's see if we have any luck pulling that off. And if we do, let's see if that makes it any easier to get a little purchase on this pan to pull it off. Let's see if we can pry this off with these more prominent pry points. Oh yeah, look at that. Still stuck pretty good, but there. That looks like it's finally releasing. Okay. Ooh. So there's the front cover off. Do you think that makes it any easier to get this pan off? There's a fitting there. Maybe we can pry against that. Oh, look at that. That's the first sign of anything. So this pan is being very stubborn, but I'm starting to get it freed up with a combination of little chisels here, and if I can get it pried down a little bit, you can slip an Olfa knife in between the block and the pan and start cutting the silicone. So I don't know if we're going to get it. I've got it mostly on this side. Let's see. Let's see if getting this side gives us enough leverage to get the other side. It's broke loose on this side. I get the impression that at some point the whole thing's just gonna break off. Well, I think maybe then I'll pull the oil cooler off, just in case there's something to do with that. It's certainly obstructive. It doesn't say you have to remove the oil cooler in the Ford manual, but it obstructs access to this rail here for using the knife. So let's take it off. Naturally, that's running oil all over my... I don't know why taking the oil cooler off would make so much difference, but it seems to have. All right, there's the oil pan off. Whew. Well, I've about run out of steam for the day. It's quitting time anyway, but we got the front cover off, we got the pan off, we got the balancer off, we got the manifolds off. We got the shop reorganized so that we can handle the whole project in this format from here on out. And The next step will be to go ahead and get this cam pulled out, replaced with the new cam, and then we can start putting it back together and putting the Holley parts on the engine. Thanks for watching. I'm going to put a couple videos up around my head here that YouTube thinks you will like. If you get a chance, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time.